No.
The water was ice cold.
Is it good?
A couple of days.
Not to scare you, Don. Thank you. I call to order the August 1st regular meeting of the Board of Education. Please rise for the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We are committed to academic achievement and success for all students in a safe environment in partnership with families and our community. Our mission is to promote confidence, inspire a passion for learning, and prepare our students to become responsible global citizens. Anthony Anderson sends his regrets. Scrooge S. sends his regrets. They cannot be here this evening. Do we have a motion to approve the revised agenda?
Motion. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Any questions or comments from interested citizens? Any comments from disinterested citizens? Any updates on questions or comments raised previously?
No.
By some noise from the peanut gallery. That's great.
They're interested.
Sometimes more intelligent than what I have to say. Motion to approve the minutes of the July 3rd, 2018 reorganization meeting, followed by the regular meeting. I have a motion.
Motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Presentation by Elsie Rodriguez, Superintendent of Schools, on ESSA accountability.
Patrick is going to assist.
Patrick is going to assist.
Good evening. Sometime in March, I received a call from the State Education Department asking, or rather encouraging me to attend a 2-day workshop on the new ESSA law. And so this past July, I was in Long Island for 2 days attending this ESSA, which is Every Student Succeeds Act, which was put into law in 2015 and took the place of No Child Left Behind. Just want to talk a little bit about what ESSA, or ESSA, stands. What it does is it outlines how federal dollars are going to be spent, and New York State gets approximately $1.6 billion. Monroe-Woodbury gets about 2% of their total budget, so it's probably in the realm of $3.6 million we get in federal aid. In January of this past year, the New York State ESSA plan was approved by the federal government. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the changes. So one of the things that are going to be markedly different is they're going to be measuring certain things. For all students, they're going to be measuring ELA math and ELL progress. And ELL progress is going to be looking at how are ELL students progressing from year to year. What I put an asterisk next to it was chronic absenteeism. The state is now saying that any student who is absent for more than 10% of the aggregate attendance will be considered a student who is chronically absent. It's not going to do it in the first year. What they will do is they'll look for patterns over several years. And what school districts will have to do is, how are we addressing the issues of our students who are not attending school? So chronic absenteeism is going to be one of those things that every school district will be measured. And they'll measure it over several years. When you go to the high school, it's always been high school students will be measured for social studies, graduation rate, and then you see something called a CCR index. That's college and career and civic readiness. That's a new term that you're going to be hearing us talk about, and Dr. Hassel will speak about that later on when he does presentations. And what that is the state is looking at giving every graduating student or every high school student a score or an index. And it's going to be based on, well, how much did the student graduate with a Regents diploma? Did the student graduate with a Regents diploma and something else? Did they take advanced courses? So the state will be looking at all of that data and giving us a score. Future indicators are going to be looking at out-of-school suspensions. So one of the things that we're going to be doing as an administrative team is we're going to be looking at ways of alternating ways to deal with student discipline. Rather than just putting a student in out-of-school suspension, what are the other things that we can do? And we have a very small committee that's going to be seeing that, and they'll be presenting something sometime in December, because we want to be able to present that to the Board of Education. The next item is high school readiness, and that has not been determined yet. So the commissioner is still working on how will she evaluate 8th grade students going into 9th grade, and then at some point in the future, school districts will get a score for that. So we're looking at our 8th grade students. How ready are they to do high school work? Sort of going back to college and career ready. How ready are high school seniors when they graduate? How productive are they? How successful are they? So those are the things, those are the indicators, the new indicators that we will be measured.
So is it going to be similar to the way they do it now, where the scores are released 3 years later, or is it going to be?
Yeah, it takes them a while to get all of the data, but one of the things that they'll be doing is that they're going to be using this school year for OSS, this past school year, 18-19, will be for chronic absenteeism. So they're going to look at students' attendance for this school year and for this past year.
What is OSS again?
Out of school suspension.
Oh, gotcha.
So, but they're going to be looking at how our students, their attendance, their aggregate attendance. And one of the things that Chris will talk about is policy. So we're going to be looking at policy, our policy on attendance, and then we're going to look at how our practices and protocols. So you go to the other slide.
Do we have the systems to monitor this stuff, or?
We do have the systems to monitor it. I think that we need to do some tweaking because the information isn't getting rolled out as quickly as we would like to have it. If school districts are going to be responsible for coming up with a plan, then we need to know who's absent as soon as possible. So we're going to be looking at different ways to make sure that we have that information as quickly as possible.
So you notify the parents before it hits the, whatever the thresholds are?
Exactly.
Got it.
They're also doing a couple of things that I think everyone needs to know. Right now, our 3 through 8 testing is 3 days. The state is looking at reducing it to just 2 days, which I think is really going to be important because I personally have felt that testing 3 through 8 students for 3 days is a bit much. And if we make the argument, which I have made the argument, that we're preparing them to take the Regents exam does not take 3 days. It takes, several hours over the course of 1 day. So I think that's a good thing that the state is doing, reducing it to 2 days. The next item is they're going to be looking at, and they always have been, but they're going to be looking at the 95% participation rate. That could be an issue for our school district because we still have a little over 50% of the students who are taking it, which means that about 40 to 45% of our students are not taking the 3 through 8 testing. What they're saying, the implications of that for a school district is when I talk about the next slide, is going to be how do they designate our schools. So we will never be what they call a recognition school if we don't have the 95 participation rate. The other thing that they're going to ensure is that all of our subgroups have 95% participation rate as well.
And what are the implications besides not getting a gold star? Are there financial implications if the state so determines?
When I attended my workshop, they said we have never punished a school district for not participating. However, we could. There could be financial implications. They've never done it, but it doesn't mean that they can turn around and say, well, we're asking you to have 95 participation rate and you didn't over the course of 5 years, let's just say. They could take away some sort of funding.
All right. I know that there's the opt-out movement and all of that, but also I just wanted to mention, and I just corroborate this, the data that we get is helpful.
Yes.
to this school and in helping to shape curriculum and a number of other areas. I mean, this is useful to us, so
Do we get that information, though, reasonably?
Yes, we do.
Do we? Okay.
In the past few years, when I do the presentation in October, which is the grade ELA and math
Yeah.
results, I speak about the refusal rate and the participation.
No, I mean the results of the tests.
Yeah, that October presentation is the results of that spring's assessments.
Okay.
So you get it
Right.
a year later, so you don't get it the year that the students are in, but it's still useful data.
Right.
And I think that it's.
Understand.
Right. I'm sorry to interrupt, but we were on that particular
Right.
subject.
No, but I think it's a good point. The other thing that they're going to be doing is translating the state math and science tests into multiple languages. And the other thing that they said they plan on doing, I'm not sure when they'll do it, is that they hope to give the ELA test in the child's native language. Because when we're testing students in English, with an English test, and they don't speak English, then what are we testing, right? So I think that hopefully in the coming years, when they have more money, they will be translating them into a child's native language.
Was there any more talk on making it more online as well? That they
Well,
would give the assessment
yes.
strictly online or doing
Yes.
it variations of online?
Well, we didn't talk about that because it was really more about ESA.
Okay.
But there is, we this year, if you want to talk a little bit about them.
It's hoping to go completely online.
For grades 3 through 8, all of it?
But we've had a couple of glitches, right? So when you have everybody testing on the same day, there can be some issues. So they're working those issues out before it becomes a mandate.
They had issues.
Yeah, I'm saying the state, not us.
I mean, maybe the collective we as a state, but really it was
Them.
Right.
The state who actually outsourced that to the third party, but they had some issues.
Sorry.
Next one. Something that's important for board members to know is that we will have new reports, and those reports will outline how much money is spent per student and from what sources. The report will also include two other things, which is class size and students' participation in the arts. So they want people to look at class size as an important piece, and they want to also make sure that school districts are not doing away with arts programs. We fortunately don't have that concern, but throughout the state there is a concern regarding that. And then I briefly spoke about it on slide 2, which is how will we be designated? So there's 4 designations. Number 1 will be comprehensive support and improvement. Those are bottom 5% of all schools. Those schools have graduation rates of 67% or less, and they've made no improvement over the course of 2 to 3 years. The second designation is something called target support. That's where our subgroups are the lowest in the state. The third is recognition school, which if you don't have a 95 participation rate, you can never be a recognition school. Those are high-performing schools and rapidly improving. And then the fourth designation is schools in good standing. So if you're not 1, 2, and 3, you by default become number 4, schools in good standings.
So, and I assume they're using this to punish the schools that do well? You'll get less money. The ones that
That's
do really
true.
bad
Yes.
do get all the money? Okay.
Well, I think that their presentation was, we are going to continue to give funds to those schools that are underperforming because we feel that they need more money.
Right.
That
So
is
if we
true.
do a great job, we get less money.
Right.
Probably yes,
Awesome.
yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for putting it in a nutshell.
What is the word counterintuitive comes to mind?
Intelligent.
Stupidity?
Counterintelligent.
Okay, go to the next slide. And then school board's responsibility. What you're going to see is the state is going to be, if we have too many students that are chronically absent, they'll come to the school district, they'll require school districts to create improvement plans. If you have too many students in a subgroup not participating enough, you'll be required to have a school improvement plan or a district improvement plan. Your job will be to approve those plans.
And if you don't, docked all your pay.
Yes. And then the last thing, which I think is a good thing, because we don't currently get any money for this, school districts will be awarded funds to have PDP plans, to have teams that will develop, implement, and evaluate. And that money will come through our Title II funds. And that's it, I think. Go to the next one.
That it?
Yep, that's it.
Any other questions?
Great.
Yep. All right.
All right, I'm going to stay here with Patrick.
Thank you very much. Moving
welcome.
on
Make you
to
do
an
this for me.
update
Yeah, I will do that for you.
I'm kidding.
on the capital project
Kidding.
by Patrick Cahill.
You sure I can help you?
That's okay.
I'm really good at the clicker.
Okay, so I'm going to provide a brief update on the proposed capital project. At our last meeting, we had Eric Bowe, the civil engineer from Land Associates, come and talk to us about the specifics of what we are talking about, what we'd like to do. What I want to do is really talk about the timeline and kind of the overarching view. I'm going to touch on some of the financial aspects of the project right now. There's some open questions. But again, it's kind of a work in progress to some degree. We're doing this, I call this the fast track approach to this capital project. We're trying to essentially do all this work in a little more than 1 year, which is kind of fast. And so certain things are a little fluid right now. One of the sort of, I won't call it a setback, but one of the surprises at the last meeting, if you recall, we had a resolution where we had the board act as the lead agency for the seeker process, which is the environmental review. So that was one of those things where we thought initially it would just be no big deal, it's type 2 action, we move on, and the architect came back and said, because this is a piece of a larger plan, that we have to consider the environmental impact of the entire plan, which is our master plan for the athletic field. So that was a little bit of a setback. So things are a little fluid, but I thought it was a good idea to sort of talk about where we are and where we're going. So this first slide, I like to just sort of remind everybody, or those that maybe didn't hear last board meeting's presentation, about what we're talking about here. It's really 4 elements to the proposed project. And the first element is essentially replacing the air conditioning system at the high school. Specifically, we're talking about replacing the cooling tower and the chillers at the high school. The current unit is over 20 years old. It's original to the building. It's past its useful life. In danger of failure. A newer unit would be more energy efficient, leading to cost savings, presumably. And we've had issues at the high school with sort of different varying temperatures in different parts of the building. So a new cooling tower would provide for more uniform and consistent temperature and humidity in the building. It was also identified in the building condition survey, so that's the 5-year analysis we have to do, survey of all our facilities, as in need of replacement. So that's the first element. The second is replacing athletic field number 3, which is essentially our football field, with a multi-purpose artificial turf field. So this field would be striped and sized to accommodate soccer, football, and lacrosse. The dimensions would be approximately 112 by 70 yards, so obviously full regulation for football, lacrosse, and nearly the maximum regulation size for soccer. We'd be installing more energy efficient lights on the existing poles, and we would, I put in, finally remove the excessive crown that we currently have on our football field.
That's too bad, because you stand there, you get a good view of things.
That's right, stand
Right
at the
from
top.
the-
We'll get you a stool, John, so you can
Thank you.
stand on that in the future. Along with that would be the track replacement. So we enlarge the field and install turf. We're going to replace the track because some of these things just make sense to do them at the same time, and there's economies of scale to do them at the same time. So we'd be replacing our aging and deteriorating 6-lane track with a new regulation 8-lane track, including steeplechase and some of the other track facilities that are required. And finally, we'd be replacing athletic field 12, which is the lacrosse field on sort of the middle plateau, with a lighted multi-purpose artificial turf field, which would accommodate soccer, baseball, and lacrosse. So the dimensions of that field would be 120 yards by 75, so that would be maximum regulation size for soccer. It'd be a beautiful field. As an ancillary piece, we're going to have to relocate the varsity softball field. We'd be moving that to the current location of the baseball field with some improvements there. Total estimated project cost, about $8.4 million.
Patrick, one of the other things that we did pay attention to was all of the fields are better facilitated for special needs.
Right.
for special needs
True.
sports and other things.
So here's a site plan map. We looked at this last week. It's not the best map, but let's see. If we can, so here's Central Valley. Here's field number 3. Here is field number 12. You can see the baseball diamond here and the full soccer field. And this is the current location of varsity softball, which would be relocated to this area, which is the current baseball field. So why are we doing this? And the simple answer is it solves several ongoing problems. In terms of the improvements at the high school, so we're replacing the cooling tower. There's also a section of roof that's above the cooling tower that would be replaced. As I mentioned, we've had temperature inconsistencies throughout the building. This would deal with that, correct that. It would improve the system performance, comfort of occupants. We've also had issues with our energy management system at the high school and the sort of inability to set back the building properly. So the tendency when this happens is just sort of crank it down and keep it too cool at times, uses more energy. So this new system would help us in that area too. I mentioned it was identified as in need of replacement on the BCS. The other big thing is just inadequate field capacity and condition, and it's only getting worse. So I've been here about 3 years. I think probably the third day I was here, I heard from the athletic director that somebody should do something and needs to do something about our athletic fields. So we're attempting to address an ongoing problem, a long-standing problem.
This is not a secret.
I know,
No,
John,
it's
I
not.
know. Forgive me, I'm going to read this one bullet here. So Monroe Woodbury fields and athletic facilities are in constant demand from community groups and our own interscholastic athletic teams. The result is the fields are frequently in poor condition from overuse and often unusable by our own teams. This requires our own teams to play more away games. It's inconvenient for people. It's expensive for transportation. It's puts pressure on the transportation department when they have to manage multiple away games. Lori Hawk, the athletic director, and I have talked about this many times. So again, this is one of the problems that this project would deal with. We've tried to deal with the overuse of the fields by restricting use, and that's worked to some degree. When you don't use a field, it looks better, it's in better shape, better condition, but it puts pressure on our other fields, and it's upsetting to community groups that want to use the facilities. It's just a fact. Grass fields are subject to the vagaries of weather. If it rains, and some of our fields have very poor drainage, our campus is like a bowl, and some of those fields are the low point in the bowl. You can't play on those fields for days. The fields are unplayable for days after rain. The other thing that's exacerbating the problem, we have more and new MW teams. We have new modified teams that need space, so it's just making it more difficult to manage. And sort of the final straw here is the DOT project to redo Exit 131. So they're widening Route 32. We're losing a field. It's Field 29 in front of CV. Field 11, which if I go back, is in this area. The new ramp is going to roll right through here to Ninninger and 17. That's going to encroach on Field 11, may make that unusable as well. So, again, it's just getting worse. And this project deals with these ongoing problems. In terms of the track replacement in the lighted Field 12, this will enable us to host regional and statewide tournaments, which in a lot of cases we can't do right now. And that benefits the district, obviously. It benefits the entire local community, the local economy, et cetera. And I think the way we looked at this with the DOT project and some of the funding that we're receiving from the eminent domain process and some of the state funding we're receiving through the Assembly and Assemblyman Skoufis, it was the right time to reinvest those funds and solve some of these problems. The final bullet I have up here is we're hopeful that we will get some cost savings through lower maintenance costs of a turf field versus the labor-intensive grass fields that we currently have. So this is the tentative project timeline and with some milestones. So Our first column is essentially the task. Next is the start date, end date, and the responsible party or stakeholder. So here, this check indicates we've dealt with most of these tasks. We've finalized these. We've finalized the scope with the Facilities Committee, the help of the Facilities Committee. I want to thank them for that, all that work we did. We have preliminary cost estimates from LAN, our architects. We've done the letter of intent to the SED, the State Ed Department, Facilities Planning. At the last board meeting, the board declared itself as the lead agency for the seeker process, and that's a requirement. We've sent out the notice of intent to the stakeholder agencies, the DEC, SHPO, and there's one other that escapes me right now. The one thing we're asking the board to do tonight, and it's under the business and financial section of the agenda, is approve a proposal with LAN to continue their work and prepare construction documents. And those are detailed plans and specifications that you need to actually do any sort of construction work. So that's on the agenda. That's on the agenda tonight as approving their proposal, because I wasn't able to finalize the agreement with our attorneys. And, it's one of those things, we don't have another meeting until the 29th, so to keep this on track, believe it or not, 1 month delay now would put us 2 years out. It wouldn't be 1 year, it would be another year, the next summer. We'd have to work on it. So that's something that's on the agenda for the board to approve tonight. The other notable milestones here, at our next board meeting on the 29th of August, the board would approve the seeker resolution. We're presuming it'll be a negative declaration, which means no significant environmental impact. And then the board would approve a resolution for a special meeting. And that's essentially, we're putting the question before the voters, because legally the voters have to authorize a capital project like this and the expenditure of monies. And we would be doing that on October 23rd. So the board would approve a resolution next meeting to put the question before the voters towards the end of October. In the interim, we have legal notices, just the way we do with the budget. 45 days prior to the vote, we have to do 4 notices. If all goes well, almost immediately after we have the budget vote, LAN would have some submissions ready to provide to the New York State Ed Department Facilities Planning Unit. That's the unit that actually approves plans and specifications for school districts in capital work. Now, that's the group that's been taking 40 weeks and whatever. What we would be doing is there's something called an expedited review where you can pay a little bit more money. And SED has been outsourcing review of plans and specifications to outside architects, essentially, and contractors. So we would be doing that to accelerate the project, and the review, and the approval. So we're estimating that we would be done with that by sort of the end of January. End of January through sort of the end of March, we would be doing the bidding and award a contract to a contractor. We would then mobilize from, say, end of March to the end of April, and we would start work on the turf fields May 1. And if all goes well, they would be finished by August 30th.
Not by graduation.
That's right. We're going to have to do that somewhere else. The construction for the cooling tower and those improvements would begin on or about July 1 and, again, be done by the end of the summer. So it's a very aggressive timeline. There's multiple ways we could sort of get knocked off the beam here, but I'm hopeful. We keep the momentum rolling, and we have been interacting and communicating with LAN regularly. We can do it, and we can deal with all the problems that I just spent a slide describing. Any questions?
I have a couple questions. So the high school will have the HVAC updated, what have you. Any thoughts or of having the air conditioning in the middle schools or in the elementary schools?
I think that would be part of the next phase. Like we did our facilities long-range plan, and we identified, that was the big list of both the wants and the needs. And I think that question would fall into that analysis. So this was something, again, because of the DOT money, because of the money that we're receiving from the state through Bullet Aid for the acceleration of the creation of Town of Palm Tree. This was something we said, you know what, let's deal with some of these problems like in a fast-track way. Again, with the long-range facilities plan, we'd have to look at what are the priorities, what do we want to do, what kind of, how large of a bond would we want to go ask the community to approve. My inclination lately, like the big list it was a big list. It was very expensive, is to do that in pieces, and rather than try to get the authority to do everything at once, because it's harder to do that. It's harder to manage. It takes years to spend that kind of money. But that's when I think we would take that question up, Lorraine. And I know it's come up before. We have cost estimates for, approximately what that would be to install air conditioning. I think we were just talking about at the middle school, not all the elementary schools.
No, we talked about the middle school. I think it was very expensive.
It's expensive.
And I think the part is that when you look at the expense and how much time you really need the air conditioning, right? Because it'll start maybe in April, as early as April, maybe May, and then school is over in June. So I think that's one of the reasons why it's not been a focus for us.
Right. It may be a nice to have, not a need to have.
But and
Well,
the
I
other
know you have some air conditioners.
I was going to say, we have,
Okay,
yeah.
so those are in rooms where you have children with special needs or people
Correct.
who
Right.
need,
Yeah.
who have to have air.
Or they have a
right?
504, yes.
Exactly. So then you have air conditioners sitting in the windows there, and that's accessible to get in. So maybe you have some kind of air conditioning where maybe it's up high, not low. I'm looking at it as a safety
Okay. Mhm.
as
And
well.
we've considered-
Having window air conditioners sitting out there.
We've considered situations like that, Lorraine, where we actually would put something in air condition, a series of rooms that are near each other, like say 4 classrooms with a unit on the roof. So that's something that we would consider.
Maybe something
And that
where you
would
can
be
allocate that just to a specific
exactly
area.
to do it because it's unsightly and it's energy inefficient. Those air conditioners don't work well.
And also, Don had mentioned about having fields that would accommodate children with special needs. So since there's no drawings on that, I'm assuming that would be in a spot where it would be shady, accessible to children who have difficulty walking. Who's coordinating that stuff?
Well, what we would do, the next step is we're going to, presuming everything keeps moving, right? We would talk to the architects. We were going to have stakeholders such as our athletic director, Lori Hawk, involved. And this is really the plans and specifications that we'd be asking the board to green light tonight, would be when those nitty-gritty details will be worked out.
And some of that
We would see them
won't be in
first.
phase one. An example is we wanted to put in additional bathroom space right behind, the master plan has right behind the current football stadium, that's a big parking lot. So in the master plan, I believe it shows a bridge going to the middle over to the stands so that you don't have to go up and down steps. You can just have it wheelchair access. But when we were looking at the budget and what can we do on the master plan now versus later, we don't want to do something that we're throwing money away. So we said, okay, here's the things we can do. But the biggest thing for access is that the grass fields now with that giant crown and the mold, there's just no way you can. That's very, very limiting. So with the artificial turf field and with the grass, it makes it to one of your comments, like makes it very easy for people with difficulty walking and other things because it's flat, it's well drained. So a lot of those things are planned. Some of them may not be in the first phase. It was a cost issue. But what we're doing will accommodate it as you keep adding it on.
Lorraine, anything?
So they won't be left out.
Correct.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Anything that we do has to be ADA compliant.
Okay.
Right, has
Yeah.
to be.
Has to
It's brand new
Yeah,
construction.
because it's new construction.
But we actually looked at additional things that
Right.
in the master plan that would be
Yeah, we had
really
like an
accommodating.
hour meeting on just accessible things that could air.
Absolutely, like large bathrooms and bridges so that people with wheelchairs and
But also shade is a big thing. If you're putting a field somewhere, there's got to be shade.
so one of the things with
Because
that, when
some children have, any child, or even adults.
So one of the
Can't
things
be
we looked
out
at was, do we do the bathroom? Because that would be a really nice thing. And we're looking at going the cost, because they have to be ADA, is also looking at providing for major events, you can just do porta-johns and things of that nature. I mean, that's an option, right? So day one, we didn't want to do something that would prevent us from doing that. We want to keep building and not replacing. So we looked at that. It was
But
just...
I think that shade would be something that you'd
So you
want
could
to
put
be
tents as well.
talking about, what are we going to do about that? Anything else on this?
I think I have a couple more slides.
Can I just say one more
Okay.
thing, is that these fields are not just athletic fields.
Right.
They're also teaching stations, because
Yeah,
we
right.
take our students out and we use them with our students. So I just want to make sure that that's not forgotten either.
Right.
And then when you have a teaching station, it has to be, again, ADA compliant. We have to make sure that we can support all the students. So, it's a good point.
Okay, so what I wanted to do is sort of touch on, some of the funding issues. So we talked a little bit about this, but I have no tax impact. That's a non-negotiable project objective. I think we had all agreed on that, and funding sources. So the project would be funded through a combination of funding sources. Our capital reserve, we put about $3.2 million into that last year. The New York State DOT monies from the eminent domain process, that was about $1.5 million. The one-time additional bullet aid from Assemblyman Skoufis, the New York State Assembly. So this was monies that were set aside for the acceleration of the creation of Palm Tree. And if you recall, we had sought some additional building aid. That was, I think, too heavy of a lift, but this is designed to help us in the transition. We thought it made sense to use one-time money for one-time expenses such as this. Appropriations from other existing reserves, so we've talked about that. Rebalancing our reserves, we would and can use some of that. And then I'm also proposing potentially some limited borrowing. So how can we achieve no tax impact with borrowing? The project, as I mentioned, is fully eligible for building aid because we've linked a project in the building to the incidental project, if you will, outside. Normally, athletic fields would not be eligible for building aid. So that's one of the advantages of managing this the way we are. Through a combination of using existing funds, like the capital reserve, and borrowing, what we would do is we'd align the new debt service expense. So we issue bonds, we have to pay them back, there's principal, there's interest, so there's a new expense, but we'd align that expense with our building aid, the new building aid. So there'd be zero impact to the taxpayers. So we'd have a new expense, but we'd also have new state aid and revenue for 15 years. And the way building aid is computed, it's computed, even if you don't borrow, it's computed as though you did borrow. So we would set that up and manage that so that it was a pure offset, so no impact to the taxpayers. The advantages of limited borrowing, interest rates are still relatively low, and the big thing for me is we're avoiding depleting our entire capital reserve and drawing down our other reserves. The alternative approach, we fund it with reserves, and the scope of this project has changed a little as we thought about things and we developed things. The advantages of that, we avoid interest payments, we avoid some, I would say, minor negligible legal fees and soft costs. We'd still get the building aid over 15 years, so that's almost like we'd be putting out the money, but we'd be getting building aid, which could be used to lower, it would keep the tax levy low and or put back into our capital reserve over time. The downside, disadvantage, depletes the capital reserve, which we need for future capital improvements. I just talked about our long-range plan, right, and the laundry list of things we need to do in addition to this project. The other downside is it wouldn't take advantage of the low interest rate environment. So the takeaway for me here, and I think for you folks, is we're still looking at this and trying to come up with the optimal approach. And I think in the next couple of weeks, we're going to send something out to the board with our recommendation. And we've been talking to bond counsel and our fiscal advisor, and we're not quite there yet for that final recommendation. But again, I go back to the non-negotiable project objective, no tax impact.
Any further questions?
Are you able to get any grants for any of that ADA stuff?
Not that I know of, Lori. not that I know of. For this kind of project, it's mostly just building it, that you'd be counting it.
So one of the things that has been brought up before that I wanted to make sure that we covered it, and Patrick touched on it, and that is, why now? Why do this? And it's really important to understand the catalyst behind why this is being done now. And we've lost 2 fields, right? So we've discussed this in the past, but a field can support a grass field can support a maximum of 600 hours of play per year, right? So we already are maxed out. We're actually this year telling teams they can't play on our fields because we can't support. In the past, we let them, and then our fields were depreciated, and everyone was upset about it. So now...
You mean community teams?
Yes, community teams. And then as a result, when we played school games on the same fields, we had a lot of community uproar about that. So it's important to understand. So you've taken 1,200 hours of play out of your existing field, which is already depleted, as a result of the DOT project, right? In order to stick with the master plan so that we don't waste money, where we're putting these fields also then requires new parking lots. Those new parking lots take additional fields. So when you're all said and done with the next few phases, we will lose probably four fields as a result of this domino effect happening, right? So you've got 2,400 hours of fields that have now been given up as a result of the domino effect that happened from the DOT project. So all of this that really is the catalyst, because once you start, we don't have a place to just if we even put in a new field, we'd be ripping it up in a few years to put it in artificial turf, but all of our fields are maxed out. They're maxed out at 600 hours. So we can't say, play the game on another field. They're already telling those people not to. So an artificial turf field allows up to 2,400, 2,500 hours per year. So when you start looking at the math, it's easy to understand why you need to put these additional fields. Our master plan shows like 4 artificial turf fields, because when you look at scheduling and everything else, it gets very, very complex. The thing that we did do with the lighting of the second field is we felt that by putting that lighting in now, it probably will allow us a little more time before we have to build a third field. So it gives us more playing hours because of daylight, and the lighting was a separate decision because we were looking at how do we get more hours out of these existing fields and keep within our budget. So there was a lot of work that went into this, and Lori Hawk and her team as well, trying to figure out scheduling, because you still run into the same problem is you have all these hours, but everybody wants them at the same time, right? So it's not perfect, but it does stick with the master plan, and we're not wasting money.
Was there an artificial turf field in the past?
No.
There was one proposed.
There was, right? But,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, years ago.
Years ago,
It
right?
was defeated.
Because of the drainage? Was it
No,
just to
I
put a
think it-
Band-Aid on something, and then you weren't
No, I
really
think it
working
was
on
the cost.
the foundation? Okay.
It was a cost. And it was because it wasn't as intelligently combined with other projects so that we would get maximum building aid.
And we probably wouldn't be doing this now if the DOT didn't take the 2 fields from us. We probably wouldn't be talking about this.
Right at the moment, but obviously we still
We've needed it, but
we still need to continue to improve the facilities,
Correct.
even beyond this proposition. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
First reading of the policy manual updates, and let's have a motion to approve the further we can talk about it. We have a motion to approve.
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
It's all right, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion, do you want to explain what we're
The
up
first
to?
one is organizational chart, just basically who reports to who through the school district,
Right.
from the Board of Ed down to teachers. It's pretty simple, it just needed to be tweaked and rewritten. The student health services, the biggest part of change in that thing is the addition of Narcan into the school system for the nurses, and when in case of an incident in our school, we don't have to wait for EMS or police to respond. We'll have it right on the staff in every school, in all the buildings. and all the nurses and everyone will be trained to, I mean, anyone can really use it, but we're going to have that policy changed to that, and that's really the only two right now. Do you want me to go on to the next thing, because I'll be talking next? The next two policy reports in the reports of the board, we are looking into the news media relations. We just sent it back to the lawyers, just basically our policy on who can talk to the media, what you can say, what venue, can you talk on Instagram, can you talk on Twitter, whatever it is.
Tweeter.
I think it's Tweeter. Those little things, there's little caveats between you and LCR, really the only two that can actually do anything to represent the school district. The last one is the comprehensive student attendance, which Elsie spoke about before. The state is mandating, like she said, about the attendance. We need to create the policy so that we can make the procedures for the teachers and the school to count the attendance promptly and accurately. It seems to be like it's delayed, and there's other issues in the state, I guess, with cases where kids said they were in class and they weren't, and it wasn't accurately recorded. So we sent that back to the lawyers. Also, we kind of mixed it up a little bit, changed some words and implemented, but the lawyers are looking into it, and that will be on the next meeting. And we're probably only going to have a first reading for that, because we want to get it implemented for the first of the school year, so the teachers can get into the procedure.
So we'll have a first reading immediately followed by a second reading.
Just because we want to get that.
So we can implement the policy.
Yes, because.
Okay. So tonight we're voting on the organizational charts and the student health services.
Correct.
Any other comments on this?
I just have one comment about, maybe I took a call the other day when we were in policy, but I had a question about other students carrying the Narcan. Did we ever?
We talked about it.
Okay, because.
So
student
it's
carrying-
similar to a student who has a prescription. So some students will have on their property, let's say, an asthma pump, but you need to have a permission for that. You just can't have that on you. So it would be the same thing. It's very unlikely that you would have a student carrying Narcan. There would be, they would need to have a.
Why I had
right.
said it.
Yes.
In the event that there is someone that is using, because it's not something that doesn't happen.
Right.
It could be going on.
Sure.
And they're nervous about a friend and want to be prepared for them. So
Right,
just,
and
we don't
what-
know.
Well, they'll
but-
need to have written
Permission from
approval from the school, just like if they had to have an EpiPen,
Yeah.
or they needed aspirin every third period. It's still,
It's the exact, the
same
attorneys
policy.
did look at that, and they said it's the exact same policy, and if a student doesn't obey that, it would be the same consequence as if they carried an EpiPen without a prescription, without doctor's note.
But it's not for their use, so there may be a small caveat into why they have it. You don't carry a EpiPen because
For
you
somebody
feel
else.
the need to be the diabetic
Correct.
crusader.
That's very true.
but,
However, we're talking about a whole different.
No, I know, but I'm
scenario.
saying there is a
That could
procedure and a
potentially
policy
save
that's going to
someone's
have to go before.
But I think that this policy will allow, with all of our emergency kits, it's going to be placed in there.
Okay.
So that our nurses in all of the school buildings, and here as well, will have access to that and will be trained. It's like any other thing that we have, like the EpiPens that we have. We also have EpiPens in our office.
And the rollout of the EpiPens was incremental. It
Correct.
began originally similar to the way that the Narcan is beginning. Stored exclusively in the nurse's office, the nurses were trained, and then gradually as the training increased, as the bus drivers were trained, as the staff were trained, then now you can find EpiPens in the same cabinet that says AEDs are in, with a little sign on it about the administration of an EpiPen. But that didn't occur until after all the staff was equipped with the necessary training to be able to administer it.
And there was a question about cost, because we all looked at it in the policy committee. It's not expensive. It's, I'm going to say like $20 or something. It was
less
really
than that.
I'm talking about Narcan. It's very inexpensive to have.
And the
Well, there are places that also give those
For free.
for free.
Correct.
when you're trained.
Okay, any more? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Policy manual updates, first reading is carried. Reports by Board of Education Committees. Chris, you sort of gave your report.
Correct.
Don, we sort of gave our report on
Both facilities and
which are
audit.
working hand in hand with with this initiative. Personnel, Matt.
We have a large number of items listed under personnel this evening, and if you were following along on board docs and refreshing what seemed like every 20 minutes from the time you received it on Friday, you probably looked and said, oh my gosh, there are even more on here. And I just want to say thank you for your patience while we were meeting with potential hires as late as this afternoon to get them in tonight. So included are new hires for a variety of needs, school psychologists and social workers, teachers, and we also have the new principal of Central Valley, which is really a homecoming of sorts. And that's Christine Arlt, who was assistant principal here, a teacher here, and then assistant principal at Central Valley for many years. She left, and she's coming on back.
She's coming home.
She's coming home. So with all that, we do have a number of people who are new to the district. So if you get a chance, if you could just stand up and let us know who you are and what you're going to be doing. We're going to start with Jessica, who's right next to the doorway.
Hi, I'm Jessica Polo.
Excellent.
She's also
Welcome.
certified in bio and general science.
Very good.
All right, Dean, you're up.
So I'm Dean Frucci. I'm the school psychologist at the middle school. I'm excited to be here.
Right.
Great.
Hi, I'm Jill. I'm going to be the lead replacement school psychologist for North Main and Sapphire.
And Bryn, you up?
Hi, I'm Corinne Crawford. I'm going to be the district-wide
Last one, then we got Christine in the back.
Hi, I'm Christine Roberts. I'm third for the secretary. The introduction to Central Valley has
So with all that, I respectfully request approval for the items listed.
Motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
So carried. Business and financial, Patrick.
Yeah, so, John, we have a number of things here under business financial. I would respectfully ask for the approval of the items. Under that section of the agenda, they include 5 donations. We have a donation from the Hockey Boosters for $7,442 for the 2017-18 year. A donation of $241 from Stop and Shop A+ Rewards Program to Sapphire Elementary. Donation of $1,879 from Orange and Rockland to North Main Elementary School Grade 2 Science and General Education Program. A donation of $40 from Your Cause LLC trustee for New York Life to North Main Elementary School, and a donation of a backpack percussion kit to North Main Elementary School from the Converse family. So I want to thank everyone for those donations. We have some obsolete items from Sapphire Elementary School, a handful of AV equipment, and from transportation, 3 vans, 1 car, and 1 truck. We have notification of income limits for free and reduced price meal eligibility. We have approval of the 18-19 meal prices for students, for no increase for breakfast, about a 15-cent increase for the lunches. And we have contract approval. We have 14 or 15 contracts, primarily special education. And as I pointed out, there is a proposal which was relatively new for LAN Associates for the preparation of construction documents related to the capital project.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I have a question. The hockey contribution, I know we're ongoing with that, and there are a variety of stakeholders that are contributing money, including the district, to keep the program going. Is that donation in line with what we expect? Are we going to be continuing to be able to fund the program?
I think we will. I think we're going to have some additional conversations about the donation amount.
Okay.
But they did make a
They did.
They did make a donation this year.
They did what they needed to do.
Yes.
Okay, great. And how have the free and reduced lunch eligibility guidelines changed? Any? Or are they pretty much the same?
I think it's one of those things where it's like a pro forma that we put that out there,
Okay.
and we have to. It's not something that we approve per se.
Okay.
It's a federal program, So to be honest with you, John, I'm not sure how the income limits change.
But it's foisted upon us.
Yes. I don't think
it's
Not the,
yes.
a nice word. Yes. Okay. Thanks. Any other questions on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Do I have a motion to approve the arrangement of the recommendation placements by the Committee of Special Education and preschool special education 13.1.2.3.4 on the agenda? We have a motion.
Second.
So we have a second. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Reports by board and central office. Chris?
Welcome, everyone, new hires. That's all really all I have to say.
Dawn?
It's been a long week.
As an
Only
incoming
Wednesday.
board member, I just want to say I'm looking forward to working with this board and central administration on behalf of the community and the students. I will be part of the facilities committee and the delegate for Orange County School Board Association.
Don?
Welcome all the new board members, and good luck, John, on your upcoming events.
Thank you. Suzanne?
I'd like to welcome all the new hires, and I'd like to welcome Dawn, and hope everybody's having a nice summer.
Thank you. Leah?
I wish everyone a good night.
Fargo?
So starting next Monday, we will be sending all the students who are registered with Monroe Woodbury School District, we'll be sending parents the information we call a demographic form. What we are asking parents to verify the information that is listed on this form. If there are no changes, they don't need to do anything. If there are changes, just make the changes and you can scan the form or send it us. This helps us to keep our student management system up to date all the time. What we deem as a student management system, basically it's the source of the information for different other systems. So it's very critical for us to make sure that we maintain accurate information for all our students and parents. So take some time as a parent, make sure that any changes you need to make, take a time and make the changes and send it to us. If you don't need to make any changes, you don't need to send the form back. Thank you.
Eric?
Just to echo the congratulations to all the new staff hired this evening. I met many of you, and I know some of you from the past, and congratulations, and I look forward to working with you. Continue enjoying your summer.
Patrick?
No report, John.
Matt?
I'm going to echo Patrick. One thing I would like to say, sorry. One thing I would like to say is it's been busy in the HR office, and I would like to just say the staff up there has been incredible, and everyone should know it. So,
Lorraine?
All right, welcome, Dawn. Congratulations to the new hires, and I'm hoping that I can make the graduation for the summer students. Saw the hairspray performance. It was fantastic, and enjoy the summer, the rest of the summer.
Stacey?
I want to thank all the guest speakers and welcome to the new hires. And I especially want to thank facilities and everybody that's been working on the project, because I know a lot of hours have gone into it. Mm-hmm. And as a parent of students that participate in athletics, and as Elsie said, as a classroom learning, I think it's definitely long overdue. And I look forward to the changes. I hope everything goes smoothly.
Thank you. Dan?
Fantastic time at Sousa. Those kids are amazing, and what they could put together in such a short amount of time. Other than that, it's already August. Summer's half over.
No, don't say that.
It's very sad.
It's not.
Thank you for saying that.
It's not half over.
You're a half empty kind of guy, aren't you?
We have halfway to go still.
The Sunday of summer.
I want to welcome everybody. I want to welcome all of our new hires. You have gone through probably a very rigorous process to get here, so welcome, welcome, welcome. We're excited to have you. I do want to say that we still have teaching and learning going on. I was fortunate enough to go see the SPELL program this morning. It's great to see our teachers and our students excited about learning even when it's 85 degrees outside. And we also have our Summer Crusader program, so if you get a chance, please visit these programs. They're just amazing, and it's good to see our kids in the summer. And at our next board meeting on August 29th, we are going to have the presentation of our strategic plan. It's the work of many people. So if you have nothing to do and you want to come and hear us, be here. 6 o'clock on the 29th.
Actually, it's at the high school.
Oh, that's right.
And it starts at
5 o'clock.
5:15 if you want to.
Okay. So much for the time.
It's a good thing.
And the unveiling
And
of
the unveiling of the bricks.
Yes, that's correct, and
At the high school walk.
Would you like to start over?
Yeah, forget it. He fixed it. Thank you, sir.
Was there anything else that Elsie misspoke about that I need to create? Oh,
It's summer.
all right. We need I just shut down my computer. We need a motion to adjourn into executive session for personnel and legal matters. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. This meeting is adjourned.